You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to find out more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where you'll find all of our past podcasts and other blog posts that we have up, along with some other items that you can purchase to help support the Beardcast. So we hope you enjoy listening to this week's show.
So Matt will introduce the podcast. I'll introduce you, and we'll just hit the road.
All right,
cool.
You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold, and we're here at the Iliff Renewal Conference, and we have Eric McEuen with us, and man, we're glad to have you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do?
Okay, yes, I'm active in music ministry, which kind of started with me being a singer-songwriter. I became a churchgoer in my kind of mid to late 20s, and then learned some of the song-leading gifts I'd developed in the contemporary folk kind of community, going to folk festivals. Worked really well for leading people in song in church, so I was often running with that. And then one of my first pastors in the church I joined in Albuquerque started hinting that I had gifts for ministry and I might consider seminary. Long story short, I did go to seminary a few years later. I attended Pacific School of Religion in Berkeley, California for 3 years, left without a degree. I was most of the way toward a Master of Divinity, but I was unable to complete that degree at that time, which is one thing that brings me to Iliff. Later, the same year that I left Pacific School of Religion, I ended up getting a job here in Denver as music director of a church. And I've been working actively as a church music director in different churches, but I've been doing that work since then. Well, also that sense of incompleteness around my personal attendance at seminary, knowing I have an unfinished degree, brought me in the doors of Iliff, where I at least got connected, learned what would be the ins and outs of transferring here to finish my degree, should I choose that. Meanwhile, I let it be known that I was a musician and interested in helping out with anything they were doing in terms of worship and chapel services, and I became a chapel musician here at Iliff. So that is my official connection to Iliff School of Theology. I've been hired as a chapel musician. Other than that, I am part of the community.
Wonderful. You know, it's one of those things in the church that when we find out people have gifts, we will jump on that. But it's a good thing, because we put people to it gives space for people to use their gifts in music ministry and technology and just the various things that we need in church to help kind of that worship experience.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I should, to piggyback on that, for me, there's been a discernment piece in responding, which is, how much do I say yes? How much do I say no? Mm-hmm. How much is it an external prodding? How much is it an internal prodding? Mm-hmm. I heard a wonderful panel discussion yesterday where a pastor was talking about how his sense of calling has both an external piece and an internal piece. That was really valuable for me, because I think every yes I've said has had both pieces, and I've had to sort out how much is it just like, hey, you have gifts, we can use those and we'll take them, or right. How much is it a joy for me to say, yes, I'm happy to serve in this way.
Right. I can remember getting started in ministry and just saying yes to everything, right? Because I want to say no. I felt bad. And it felt good for people to want my gifts and graces, but at some point there's a need for those boundaries and that processing of how much of this do I enjoy doing and want to do, and how much is it of me just not wanting to tell people no?
Yes.
So that's good.
That's a great question. And I have another thought after that, which is I'm currently employed as music director of Washington Park United Church of Christ here in Denver, only a couple of miles away from Iliff, close ties to the Iliff community. We've been pastored by 2 Iliff grads recently. Right. And currently we're in a situation where our senior pastor has recently left. We're congregationalists, so it is our decision what to do next. We've decided to go the route of probably having an interim minister start in a few months. Between now and then, I've stepped up and I'm both music director and Sunday worship coordinator, where I have an official role that is expanded beyond my music director role, but it is still part-time. It is still under half-time. So I really have to watch how much am I giving, and while it is a joy to give, and I could enjoy working for this church full-time, that doesn't work for me in the whole life picture, so I need to be careful about my yeses in that way too.
Right. So what, being at the Renewal Conference here, what have you really picked up in the last couple of days? What have you enjoyed? What has pushed you? You kind of mentioned a little bit, but what's pushed you in kind of new ways or even old ways? But what are you enjoying this week?
Well, today's highlight would be hearing Reverend Tracy Blackman speak at a plenary this afternoon. I already was an admirer of her, so getting to see her speak in person the second time I have was a remarkable opportunity. And some of the things she said, she talked about her own journey to being what she is now, known as a prominent social justice pastor nationwide and perhaps internationally known. But she talked about getting there through a somewhat unlikely route where this was not what she set out to do, and unfolded her whole journey over told an extensive story, which I think was really helpful to people here discerning what their own path might be and what they might say yes to. So that's definitely a highlight for me. I also have continued to ponder the very first speaker yesterday, Dr. Andrea Smith, and the lens she brought to social justice activism, and in particular, trying to change from this paradigm where we're supposed to be perfect activists when we show up in community. We're supposed to be perfect when we show up in community. Mm-hmm. And then if we have any kind of human fallibility, breakdown, any kind of issue come up, we have to go away to heal. That's kind of the expectation under the current paradigm. Don't show up with your messes. And talked about how we need a new paradigm that lets us show up as the broken people we are and accepts that as our starting point rather than having this unrealistic starting point of perfection, which would also let us heal in community. I thought that's very valuable. So that's another highlight on it.
Yeah, and that's something good for us all to remember, that whether it's us coming to the table in all of our humanity, or as we welcome people in, remembering that we're not welcoming perfect people in, right? We're welcoming in humans, right? And we have our stuff, and that's okay. And we live in a society that doesn't value that sometimes, that the willingness to be vulnerable in those moments. And hey, I am broken, I am tired, I am all of these things, and I am not perfect. And in ministry especially, we kind of live in a fishbowl. From being in, whether it's music ministry or youth or children's or in pastoral ministry, we live in this little fishbowl that we kind of have to swim around and do things right, or perfect. In the moment that we have these little hiccups, or we show that we're just tired and worn out, people are like, oh,
So there's one big takeaway. Like, if you had to say, what was your biggest takeaway from this renewal gathering? What would you say your biggest takeaway would be from these days?
Keep showing up and learning in community. I mean, this is my second renewal conference. I've got so much out of it last year. I was eager to come back this year if I could. So my biggest takeaway is sort of like a high altitude looking down on it all. I'm really grateful that I came in order to be part of these discussions that are so important and relevant to the culture and ministry and the culture right now.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That kind of bird's eye view to just take it all in and then take it back to where you are, your context, and let's soak that in. Mm-hmm. That's good. So before we sign off here, you told, and I may be putting you on the spot, and that's okay, you can tell me no. You talked about you've done some recording music and things like that. Is there anything that you'd like to point to and shamelessly promote at these moments?
This is where I think for the umpteenth time I need to get my website back.
Right, exactly.
But, well, I am happily serving as music director of Wash Park UCC, which I will plug as a particularly progressive church, even among the UCC. Mm-hmm. There was another conversation today about how many of our pastors come out of seminary with a much more progressive and even sometimes radical perspective mm-hmm. than congregations are ready for. And then, that just becomes a give and take. And what ministry looks like in that circumstance is a negotiation. But within the UCC, which is known for being fairly progressive, Wash Park is toward the progressive end. Mm-hmm. And might be one that's particularly appealing to theology students, recent seminary grads, those kinds of things, because we're more ready for some of these conversations than some congregations are. So that's my shameless plug today.
Perfect. We just love music here on the podcast and love plugging people's stuff. So that's the perfect plug of people needing, if they're in a place where they can find a home that just is home, right? Find those places. And if you're here in the Denver area, Wash Park UCC, right?
That's right.
Check those guys out and see if that's where you are.
And I do have some recorded music up under my own name at Bandcamp. There's a site called bandcamp.com, which lets independent musicians post their own music. And then there's a direct relationship, a buying relationship, or just a listening or communication between artist and listener. And I have some music there. If you search for my name, which is EricMcEuen at Bandcamp, you can find some of my music that way.
Perfect. We'll definitely point to that on our website and send people that direction. It's wonderful. Was there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? I know that's a loaded question.
It's also such a big open-ended
It is,
question.
right? Yeah.
Nothing's coming right to mind.
That's perfect.
Well, we want to point you to our website at beardedtheologians.com and check out all the stuff that we've got up there, and feel free to purchase something and click on the link when we have the link up there for all your stuff on Bandcamp, and we'll try to get a direct link to that so that way people can check that out. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
We hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had today on the Bearded Theologians Beardcast, and we'd encourage you to continue those conversations online at beardedtheologians.com or on our Facebook page. We also hope that you pick up a couple of coffee mugs to satisfy your coffee mug collection. Have a good day.